A storm is closing in, and one traveler carries news that could save an entire camp. Beyond the ridge, the river is breaking open beneath a skin of late winter ice. The group must move tonight, or wait here while food and firewood disappear. But the traveler has crossed only one valley. The warning began far beyond it. How far could a message travel in the Ice Age, before roads, writing, or maps? At Pina Capen in central Iberia, stone tools preserve an extraordinary trail. Geochemical analysis linked some Solutrean artifacts to sources in southwest France. The source lay roughly 600 to 700 kilometers from the shelter. Researchers describe it as the longest confirmed source-to-discard distance yet identified for Paleolithic knapped stone in Europe. The pattern persisted across archaeological layers spanning about 1400 years. No evidence shows that one traveler carried each object across the entire distance. The tools may have moved through exchange, repeated visits, or several connected groups. Researchers suggest some pieces may have helped maintain distant social relationships. If so, their value was not only sharpness, but the connection their journey represented. A small stone point could cross mountains while news moved beside it, ahead of it, or behind it. Pina Capen shows that Ice Age contact could operate far beyond one familiar hunting range. The evidence does not show news traveling like a modern message from start to finish. It shows networks capable of moving objects and perhaps useful knowledge far beyond one camp. For distant knowledge to remain useful, it had to survive weather, memory, and human mistrust. One changed detail could send families toward thin ice instead of solid ground. A delayed message could arrive after the herd, the flood, or the safe season had passed. Yet small Ice Age groups could not learn every distant danger by themselves. They needed information from people who had seen another valley, coast, or mountain. That information might concern animals, stone, water, strangers, or a blocked route. It could also carry something harder to measure: who was trusted, welcomed, or feared. No written note could preserve the warning exactly as it crossed the landscape. Instead, information probably moved through voices, gestures, objects, and repeated acts. Each meeting became a bridge between what one group knew and another needed. But every bridge had limits, because contact was never constant across all regions. Winter could isolate camps that had met only months earlier at a shared gathering place. Floods, deserts, glacier, and hostile terrain could break a chain without warning. The shortest Ice Age message traveled from one face, one hand, and one memory to another. A traveler could point to a ridge, trace a river, or imitate the movement of an animal. Demonstration may have protected meaning when words alone were easy to misunderstand. A broken branch could show direction, a sequence of stones could show distance or order. These reconstructions are plausible, but their exact forms have not survived. What survives more clearly is repeated movement between camps and resource zones. People clearly carried tools and ornaments, food, skills, and observations may have traveled with them. Every documented journey between places created an opportunity for observations to move with the traveler. A person returning from the west may have brought far more than stone, hide, or meat. They may have brought the timing of a herd, the condition of a pass, or news of another group. The message did not need perfect wording if the decision it supported remained clear. Leave before the thaw. Avoid the lower ford. Follow the ridge when the wind turns. Simple actions can survive retelling better than long, detailed explanations. Which would you trust most? Repeated words, a clear gesture, or a known landmark? Information became strongest when it could be checked against the visible world. Distance was only half the problem. The other half was deciding whom to believe. A warning from close kin may have carried more weight than one from an unknown visitor. Objects, clothing, and familiar ornament styles may have signaled social connection. They could suggest that a traveler belonged to a known network, not a hostile group. But no pendant can tell archaeologists the exact promise attached to it. Trust was probably built through repeated meetings, exchange, care, and remembered conduct. A reliable traveler became valuable because their knowledge had survived earlier tests. One true report about water could shape whether the next warning was accepted. One false report could damage more than a journey, it could damage a relationship. Imagine hearing that a northern pass is open from someone your camp met last spring. Would you move your family on that report, or wait until another traveler confirms it? Redundancy matters when a mistake can cost days of food, warmth, and strength. Several visitors repeating the same detail could turn rumor into practical confidence. A tool from a known source might also support a story about where someone had traveled. Still, stone proves movement of material, not the truth of every word spoken beside it. Some objects may have helped people remember relationships that stretched beyond sight. A bead, tooth, pigment, or unusual stone could carry a history known to its owners. Its material might recall a place, Its form might recall the people who made it. Such objects were not written sentences, and their meanings remain largely unknown. But they could work as memory anchors during meetings, journeys, and exchanges. A rare stone could begin a story about the route, source, or person who passed it onward. A repeated bead style could make distant strangers feel less completely unfamiliar. Shared ways of making things may have marked connection without erasing local difference. Learning a style also required attention, practice, and some path of transmission. That path might involve travel, intermarriage, seasonal gatherings, or visiting specialists. Archaeology rarely tells us which mechanism carried a particular design. It can show that choices appeared across space, then changed as contact weakened. Material culture records patterns, but not the conversations that produced those patterns. The silence is frustrating, yet the pattern itself is evidence that people were connected. A message could travel inside an object without the object containing literal words. Long-distance information probably moved in stages, not in one heroic journey. One traveler crossed a valley, another crossed a plateau, and another reached the coast. At each meeting, news could be retold, shortened, tested, or joined with local knowledge. This relay could carry information farther than any single person's seasonal range. If you relayed one warning onward, which detail would you protect from change? Practical messages may have survived best when tied to routes, seasons, and visible signs. A frozen river, a red cliff, or a split peak could stabilize a description across regions. Skill could travel differently, through imitation rather than verbal explanation. Watching a point being shaped may transmit knowledge more faithfully than describing it. Then the learner could carry that method onward and demonstrate it at another camp. Technology can spread through connected people even when no artifact travels the full path. Artifacts can also pass hand to hand while their original maker stays far away. That distinction is central. Objects, people, and information do not move identically. A stone found far from its source may record travel, exchange, or several linked transfers. Without more evidence, archaeology cannot choose one route with complete certainty. Networks became denser when scattered groups gathered at the same place and season. Several camps could compare routes, marriages, losses, animal movements, and new tools. Children might observe unfamiliar techniques while adults renewed older relationships. These gatherings are a reasonable inference, not a universal rule for Ice Age life. Different communities likely organized contact in different ways across time and space. Some meetings may have been brief, others may have lasted through a rich seasonal harvest. A single gathering could redistribute information across many departing routes. Each group then carried only part of what it had heard into another region. Over years, a network could resemble a web without any central leader or messenger. Information traveled because ordinary people moved for food, family, materials, and safety. Leadership may have shaped decisions, but exact political rules remain unknown. An elder could preserve route knowledge, while younger travelers updated changing details. A craftsperson could spread technique, while a parent preserved names and relationships. No social role had to remain permanent for the larger network to keep functioning. The network survived when enough people remembered, traveled, met, and trusted one another. This was not one connected Ice Age world. A separate, much earlier trail appears in African ostrich eggshell beads. Researchers compared more than 1,500 beads from 31 archaeological sites. Between about 50 and 33,000 years ago, distant bead sizes overlapped. The two regions were separated by a distance of more than 3,000 kilometers. The similarity is consistent with socially mediated transmission across a vast regional network. It does not show a single continuous road, migration, or identical culture. Bead-making knowledge may have moved through many communities over many generations. After about 33,000 years ago, the regional similarity weakened. Major environmental changes may have helped disrupt the earlier links between these regions. Later southern bead traditions followed a smaller, more regionally distinct style. The beads reveal connection and separation, but not the words people exchanged. Together, stone and beads show that information could outlive any single traveler. Both the European stone and African beads suggest that distant relationships could reduce local risk. When local game failed, another group might know where conditions were better. When stone was scarce, exchange could connect people to a distant source. When a route closed, travelers could redirect movement through safer country. This does not prove every exchange was generous, peaceful, voluntary, or equal. Networks may also have involved rivalry, exclusion, obligation, and difficult negotiation. Still, contact expanded the amount of landscape knowledge available to one small camp. Would you share a safe route with strangers if your own camp might need it later? One valley might remain productive while another became dry, flooded, or dangerously cold. A broad network offered alternatives when local experience was no longer enough. But networks could shrink when climate made travel corridors harder to cross. Rivers could flood, grasslands could fragment, and gathering places could disappear. When meetings stopped, shared styles and shared knowledge could slowly diverge. Isolation did not mean people lost intelligence, it meant fewer chances to exchange ideas. Connection was never guaranteed. It had to be rebuilt through movement and encounter. Familiar travelers, rare objects, and repeated reports offered different kinds of trust. The answer may reveal why successful communication depended on several signals together. A message survived distance when people, objects, routes, and trust reinforced one another. Archaeology cannot recover the exact sentence spoken beside a fire 20,000 years ago. It cannot tell whether a distant object carried warning, friendship, status, or obligation. When two distant objects match, do you see contact, coincidence, or common function? Long transport distances also cannot separate direct travel from hand-to-hand exchange alone. Ancient DNA can reveal population relationships, but not the content of a conversation. So every reconstruction must separate physical evidence from plausible human behavior. The strongest conclusion is modest: connected people could move useful knowledge across great distances. Back at the camp, the traveler lays down a foreign stone and points toward the ridge. The group does not hear a perfect message from 700 kilometers away. They receive fragments: a route, a warning, a trusted connection, and a choice. The elder studies the wind, the caregiver gathers the child, the fire is covered. Before dawn, they leave the failing river and climb toward safer ground. The message survived because many people carried pieces of it farther than one person could. What traveled farthest? Danger, tools, skills, or trust? Choose one in the comments.